The time is about 13 minutes to 10 o'clock before we wrap up the show. And joining us right now on our last segment of the show is Ayesha Vahed. She'll be chatting to us. Well, she's Salam Media's legal reporter, I should say that. She's coming to us from the Netherlands. And just going to chat to us briefly about the court order that the Netherlands should stop sending Apartheid Israel fighter jet spares and the implication of that. Welcome to Salam Media, Aisha, and thank you so much for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Just quickly, the court order itself, in the simplest of terms, what does it mean? Who brought it up to court and the implications thereof?
Okay, so basically on the 12th of Feb, so that was Monday, the Dutch High Court ruled that the Dutch government can no longer send these fighter jet parts, these F-35 fighter jet parts to Israel. So they've been exporting it. And this case was brought to a lower court last year by Amnesty International and Oxfam. These are two humanitarian organizations. And the court actually rejected the claim. So last year, the court said that, governments have a broad discretion on how they're going to, deal with situations of war and politics, and they can weigh up the two. And this week, it was a big victory because a higher court, so that's the Dutch High Court, ruled that the Netherlands can no longer send those parts to Israel because it's very likely that it's being used in the aggression against Gaza and it's infringing on humanitarian law.
Mm. I'm just interested to find out what arguments did the Dutch government present in defense of continuing the exports?
Sure. So the biggest argument, and I think this is the biggest argument that's put forward by Israel all the time, is the right to self-defense. And basically, the other argument was that Israel needs to protect itself against military aggressions because the region is volatile. So it mentioned Yemen, Syria. It said that it could also need protection from Egypt. And basically, they said because the area is unstable, Israel needs to be in possession of these weapons at all times, should it need to defend itself against any of these countries. But the court obviously took into consideration the military aggression right now in Gaza, and right now the offensive from the Israeli government to the people of Gaza is so it's the bombardment is so severe that it can't in good conscience allow the government to continue.
Mm, mm. And how was this ruling received by the broader Dutch population? Is it news that is accepted or is it resented, depending on which side of the chalk you basically belong to? How did the general public receive the ruling?
It's been received very well. In fact, there were protests outside the court this time. So there were a lot of organizations that were protesting outside the court and were very, hopeful and anticipating that the court would rule in favor or against the Dutch government. So it's been met with a lot of support, and the government's actually going to appeal. So just, to explain in legal terms, the government will now appeal this decision to the Supreme Court here in the Netherlands, and on the basis that they need the ability to send weapons into countries, to defend themselves.
Mm.
So, we wait to see what the appeal holds, and we hope that the court holds them to this decision. But the biggest victory right now is that right now, while the aggression is carrying on, they can't send these parts any longer to Israel. So it puts a stop to it for now.
And does this ruling have any kind of implications? I'm sure any court case and how it's ultimately decided on will have precedence. But will this one, this ruling have any kind of implications for other countries involved in arms exports to conflict zones?
I think so. I think definitely, it sets a precedent. And I think that's what the ICJ has done also with its interim rulings and with the provisional measures that it puts in place. And it changes things when a country is doing something, especially because the ICJ sits in the Netherlands as well. When a country is doing something and then its own courts, sort of set out a ruling against it, it makes it much harder for the government to just go ahead without any question or any conscience. So it definitely puts a lot of pressure. And we must remember that this case failed last year. And the same case has now, Amnesty has succeeded in getting the appeal granted. So it's very important that governments or people keep bringing these cases against the governments, and it sets a precedent. And in law, once a precedent has been set, a lot of courts tend to follow suit. So it's a
Mm.
big victory for us.
And you did mention that the Dutch government will be appealing. Do they have solid grounds for the appeal? What can we expect going forward?
Well, so the appeal will be based, on the fact, as I said, that they feel that Israel has a right to defend itself against aggression in the area. And what will happen is when the appeal comes through to the Supreme Court, it will weigh these things up. So it will weigh the damage that's been done in Gaza, the violation of humanitarian law against the government's right or the flexibility given to governments to export weapons as it sees fit. But I think, in light of the fact that we have this ruling now, and in light of the fact of what's currently happening, the aggression in Gaza, uh, we're hoping, and I think that, it's very likely that the court will keep the ruling as is.
Mm. Okay, thank you so much, Aisha. I think we're going to leave it there, but I'm pretty sure we're going to touch base soon as the situation in Gaza escalates and there's more international focus into it. But I think for now we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. That was Aisha Vahed there, just dissecting the court order that the Netherlands should halt delivery of fighter jets parts to Israel. The court noted a clear risk that the parts are being used in serious violations of international humanitarian law. A Dutch court has ordered the government to halt the delivery of parts for F-35 fighter jets used by Israel in its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. The verdict delivered by an appeals court on Monday said there's a clear risk that the parts the Netherlands is exporting are being used in serious violations of international humanitarian law. The court said it is likely that Israel was using its F-35s in attacks on Gaza, which are leading to unacceptable civilian casualties. It dismissed the Dutch state argument that it did not have to do a new check on the permit for the exports. However, in response to Monday's ruling, the Dutch government said it would appeal the order of the Supreme Court, arguing the weapons part were crucial to Israel's ability to protect itself from threats in the region, for example, from Iran, Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon. The ruling followed an appeal by Amnesty International and Oxfam against a lower court decision last year that rejected the argument that supplying the parts contributed to alleged contributing to wide-scale and serious violations of humanitarian law by Israel in Gaza. Yes, so I think Aisha, they are just breaking it down nicely for us. We'll keep an eye on whether or not that appeal by the Dutch government to a higher court will follow through. But I think this is a small yet very significant victory for the people of Gaza who are going through a very, very, very difficult situation. I mean, we saw what happened yesterday in Rafah, some of the bombardment that has been taking place there. And I'm pretty sure some of the parts that were used in the bombardment of the people of Gaza who are in Rafah and the people of Rafah, some of those parts on those fighter jets were from the Netherlands. So I think a very small victory there. We'll take it and run with it and keep an eye on other new developments. I think Aisha there will be updating us up. But I think we've come to the end of our show. But before I let you go, remember the lucrative Muslim vote. Who will govern South Africa with award-winning journalist and co-author of Who Will Rule SA, Kanita Hunter. This is an event that's going to be taking place at Andalus Boutique at 101 12th Avenue, Morningside, Durban, on the 1st of March 2024 at 9:30 in the evening. Some of the panelists, but first, some of the panelists are going to be Dr. Imran Bakas, a columnist and political analyst, Dr. Faisal Soliman, chairperson of SAMNET, Ibrahim Patel, Chief at Siyaxoxa Tech, and ex-president of Minara Chamber. This event will be moderated by our very own Inayat Wadi. And if you'd like to be a part of it, if you're in Durban or you are in any part of South Africa and you'd like to get yourself tickets, you can call Auntie Firoza, our colleague. Her number is 083 432 9163. I repeat again, 083 432 9163. Actually, I think Kolani should put that number on the screen for those that didn't quite get it. So it's going to be a really, really gripping engagement, an account of South Africa's 30 years of democracy and who will rule next. This event is a must for anyone who wants to know more about the way forward for South Africa, particularly when it comes to the elections. Tickets are 250 a pop. And if you want a ticket, contact Feroza. She's out in Durban. Her number is 083 432 9163. And seats are very limited. So tickets are going to be going selling hot and fast. I think this is one of the most much anticipated events of 2023 as we 2024 as we lead up to the elections. But for now, we're going to leave it here. Myself and the team will see you again next week, Wednesday, on this edition of News and Views. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you soon. Walaikum salam.